In this game right here, we are playing as white against an actual opponent. We are to move. We're going to set up a windmill. It takes a little bit of practice here. What we're looking to do, if you want to hit pause, go ahead, is get the rook to the d7 square. Okay? But that takes a couple moves to do. And unfortunately, if you'll notice, the rook on c7 is defending that d7 square. So we need to figure out a way to do that. Well, how do we do it? We do it through a series of checks. If you'll notice, the queen can move to a8. So we go to a8 check. Now, black could move their king, but if they do, they lose the rook. So black decides to play rook to c7. Okay. Now we need to finish with shifting black's pieces. How do we do that? We play queen back to a5 check. Again, a number of options for black. Black decides to play the bishop back. So our queen's in trouble here. We play queen to d2. Black decides to play the pawn. Now we bring the rook forward to f7. Okay, black decides to play the pawn again. We play the rook to d7 check. Except rook is defended, and black only has one attacker there. So black moves, the only square it can move to, right there. We can take the bishop, and it's a discovered check. So that's the windmill right there. And then we go ahead and we win the queen. And then the game progresses right there. There's a nice check fork right there. Take that piece. Another check fork. Take the other piece. And black resigns right there. This game right here, we're playing as white. And we're going to do a windmill. We ended up doing a windmill. I'll explain what happened here. Online game, of course. Now, if you'll notice, this piece right here gets developed. This is going to be one of the critical pieces to the windmill. I'll show the other one in just a minute here. Yeah, we're basically just developing here, looking for a weak spot to attack. Got the knight developed in a good spot there. Control the center. They're playing back. I'm deciding to push the g-pawn all the way up and then open up a file for like a rook or a queen here. They're bringing their knight in. We push this. Remember, we got two defenders. We got the f3 knight and the c1 bishop, which you'll see later. They decide to capture c1 bishop. Eyeballing the queen. It still has the f3 knight protecting it. Black decides to defend that by pushing taking the knight and moving it backwards. So black's kind of in a tight spot. Black needs to get out of there and figure out a way to castle to the left side now, because the right side's pretty much all tore up. But unfortunately for black, they don't do that. So we play rook to g1 right there. And they decide to get rid of this pen on the queen. The queen's not really pinned in this spot. I mean, it is technically pinned if it moves that knight. But they've got they got quite a few defenders here. So I decide to just capture right there. And there's two different legitimate captures they could do. They could capture with the bishop or the knight. I don't want them capturing with the knight. I want them capturing with that bishop on f8, because that opens up the door for the rook, which they do. We take the rook to g7 right there. And this is very critical because this rook is going to be involved in the windmill. Okay, so next move for black is to take the knight out of the middle, okay, with the bishop. So we recapture with the bishop right there. Black decides to move its knight to the center, try to control the center, do some damage there. After thinking over for a little while, I decided to recapture with the knight, or capture with the knight right there. And the reason for that is I want to develop my queen. Plus, if you'll notice, all the other squares that the knight can go to our dark squares, which are guarded by the bishop on e7. So we go ahead and do there. Unfortunately, black decides to capture that knight, which, I mean, seems like a reasonable move. The only problem is queen to
check.
h5 check. After thinking it over, black goes to f8 right there,
check.
To which we take the rook, and we're going to get involved in a windmill here. Rook to f7
check.
Check. Okay? As soon as black decides to move to the right, we go rook takes e8.
Check.
Discovered check by that bishop we were talking about earlier. And then black decides to go back to the square. And I could have toyed around with him and did a long windmill and stuff, but I just decided to go queen to f7.
Checkmate.
Checkmate. And end the game right there.
In this game, we're playing as white, and this game has a really cool windmill. It's going to involve this bishop right here. We're just going to involve it in a different square. I'll just watch the moves develop here. We play the knight. They develop, or they going for the fianchetto with the bishop, developing there. Decide a castle right there. They decide a castle, and now the fun is about ready to begin. If you'll notice, we move the bishop back to c4, and this one takes place between the knight and the bishop. That's pretty cool. Yeah, did not expect this to happen here. So they play pawn forward. I obviously play the knight to g5. And we're just looking right here to maybe trade these two pieces for the rook and the pawn and break down the structure, but it didn't actually play out this way. They decided to play the knight forward there, to which I respond with a check. Now, most engines and most players will capture with the rook there. This player decided not to do that. So I go back like that. And no extra move to get it out of the way. And now we have a windmill ready involving both the bishop and the knight. So that's pretty cool. We'll show you the sequence here. There's a check. Okay, king has to move. We take the queen right there, discovered check. Okay, king moves, check again. We can go ahead and take, discovered check. King moves, check again. We go ahead, we take, king moves, check again, because it's protected. Now, of course, we've gotten everything we can with the knight. A number of different ways we can go. I decided to go to h6. Check. So they move the king, and what I'm looking to do is just develop the bishop here and end the game right there. Because I feel like we took enough material there. We capture with the bishop. They crash the rook there. They bring in... They finally get rid of the bishop. I think I would want to get rid of the bishop after getting a windmill like that too. We recapture there. And then I decide to capture with the queen. And that's pretty much the game right there. It's a pretty sweet windmill right there.
And of course, that is going to wrap this up. If you are looking for more chess, there are links in the description below to 3 playlists, or you can check out the playlist on this channel. The first one is How to Beat Master Level AI in Chess. That involves playing against the highest possible engine for certain phone apps, Pure Chess for PS4, some other apps like that as well. There's another one called Pure Chess Challenges that basically has 99 problems, mate in 1, mate in 2, up to mate in 5, and that is for the Pure Pro Chess for PS4. And finally, there is a playlist called Chess for Beginners. Just to reemphasize here, there is a link in the description below for these playlists. You can also check out the playlists on this channel. You can find them there. And we're going to put a link in the comment section as well. And that'll do it. Good luck.